So it's called the motherhood penalty.
Yeah, the City Journal is a online magazine. It's an article called "Penalizing Ourselves." It's about motherhood being completely different economically. Let's see here. So single women without children had an average wealth of $65,000 in this recent study,
Yeah.
and surprisingly,
Mm-hmm.
men of the same, male counterparts had a wealth of $57,000.
That's
So
crazy.
if you're childless and female today and you're 35 or 30, you have a higher net wealth than the average male who's childless. This is very odd.
Is that
I don't
because
think that would be.
is that because males are paying for females all the time? Is that the argument that's going to come out the?
Okay, I haven't thought of that. But just, in general, and this has to do with this new demographics that
Yeah.
we have now,
Mhm.
where the only people who are doing well are either like childless, career people, or if you're married, then the stats are good, right? But people who are unmarried, like male,
Right.
unmarried, are not. So it sounds like men are not particularly motivated if they're not married.
Interesting.
Yeah. So whereas women are actually out earning them. Really, very
The
interesting.
out earning the younger, well, their own.
Because for those with kids, the situation is reversed. And this is what we're talking about, the motherhood penalty.
Right.
Working moms earn a third less than childless moms,
Right.
right? Which, I suppose that makes sense. And then we got single mothers are literally like poor. They have a net wealth of $7,000.
Well, that would
and yet,
make, if you think about it, that would make a lot of sense. I'm not laughing.
it does make sense, but that group is hailed as like this great thing. I guess they, what do you want everyone to be poor? Doesn't seem like it should be hailed as a great thing.
Right.
But because obviously the media celebrates the financial rewards of being female, single, childless, but they also celebrate being a single mom, which is really not great. So it's very confusing as to what they're actually saying here. We got here this article from Bloomberg: women who stay single and don't have kids are getting richer. Foregoing marriage and parenthood has a bigger payoff for American women than for men, according to new research.
Interesting.
So there's basically two narratives.
Right.
For women, there's two narratives.
Mm-hmm.
The first praises wealthy, single, childless women, right?
Yeah.
The second expresses outrage about the pay gap for older women with children.
Older women meaning 35 and up.
Yeah. In the 1950s, they asked, "Are you a Jackie or a Marilyn?" This is like it was an ad in the 1950s. You were, are you a free woman, or are you a mom taking care of the kids?
Prim and proper mommy.
Yeah. So it's called the motherhood penalty. They say explains why women are delaying having children. As we know, it used to be like 22. Now it's like 27 or something.
Well, some of them never do now, which is quite.
It's getting to the point where there's actual physical penalties as well.
The loss of salary combined with the high cost of raising a kid seems to make motherhood prohibitive, especially for the younger women at this point, when you start thinking about it.
So the issue is here, if you're going to talk about a motherhood penalty, it only makes sense if you see having children as a project of an individual, not as a shared project, right?
Well, yeah.
When if children are regarded as a familial responsibility, then
it goes to beyond the mother and the father. It also means the grandmother and the aunts, and everyone else is involved here.
So it's not. It doesn't come down to just a simple economic value, right?
Exactly.
It's a collective family unit, the whole family unit, right?
Yeah.
You're basically just something you're involved in. You're not sitting here counting the pennies and whatnot.
Well, you're also making different decisions.
On the other hand, when motherhood is seen as a lifestyle choice, children become a luxury good, basically like a choice, like buy a fancy car or not, have children or not. They're nice to have, but not necessarily necessary for adulthood or marriage. You don't have to have children. And that was not really something that people used to think about very much.
They sort of become pets in a sense.
So this article goes on to say our cultural attitude toward children is driven by a pervasive anti-humanism. Far from being seen as a blessing, babies are potential racists, polluters, a drain on limited public resources. Our obsession with the motherhood penalty suggests an inability to assess values beyond material terms. An anti-human instrumentalism leaves us struggling to express the worth of education, culture, work, relationships, other than through potential economic returns.
Yeah.
Having kids comes to be viewed in relation to financial gains and losses rather than human bonds formed and love gained.
And
Right?
there you have it. You're saying that the higher value is the money than the children in the community and the lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, like we
So,
saw back in,
yeah.
we talked about this earlier in our earlier videos, that in the
Yeah.
1960s we switched from all of our values switched to basically money as the primary value that everyone was thinking about. There were lots of other values, but it just all became money.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
1990. Show me the money, and boy, that.
but it's also the idea that feminism is really a form of capitalism, like neoliberal capitalism.
Well,
We think of it as this revolutionary movement, but really it's in a lot of ways it's a form of capitalism. It's obsessed with man as a unit of the economy.
man, claw man. Yeah. In other words, women brought. So that's kind of interesting. Bringing women into that world was what happened.
I mean it's great for businesses because now there's twice as many employees for your to apply for your business, for your jobs.
You're suddenly like, hey, you've
so
added.
it's weird. It's like feminism it's not Marxism and capitalism. Marxism revolutionary. It's just capitalism. It's very strange. It's strange to even talk about it. But so there's this new thing called quiet quitting. It's one of these terms that gets made up in the media, but it has kind of become a big thing. But quiet quitting means remaining in one's workplace while not actively going above and beyond. In other words, just doing the minimum.
Well,
not exactly a new thing.
I think everybody,
but it's something that they're talking about now.
Well, I think you're experiencing it like you used to be about 10% maybe, and now you're like,
that's probably true. Yeah, we had
climbing
personal experience with that. Yes. That any business owner knows that this is real. Quiet quitting suggests that many people consider their work of very little importance, real importance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're going to have children, clearly you can't quiet quit. You can be a mother and be quiet quitting. Like, I'm just going to do the minimum for my children. So, having children is a lifelong commitment.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes on to say, because our culture is often set squarely against children and families, it's only the reason that we're against children and families to begin with that we're talking about a motherhood penalty. We didn't talk about this, years ago. Mm-hmm. A society that values children as integral to families and communities and sees raising the next generation as a commitment to the future would not see giving up time, money, or freedom as a penalty or even a sacrifice, but as an opportunity to transcend individual needs. Our focus on a motherhood penalty reveals a very different set of priorities.
Yes, I would have to actually say that it's mostly making money the primary focus in life, not life itself.
Yeah.
So if you're not gonna value life itself, then you're going to say, well, that's going to be a problem. To have a baby is a problem because this is adding something in your world that you're going to be with it for the rest of your life, right? So there's a lot
having
of youth,
it all thing, of course.
Well, there's a lot of youth that think, well, I don't know. I'm worried about everything now. I can't imagine.
But there is actually, I do have sort of somewhat mixed feelings about this because on the one hand, people are supposed to be prudent, right?
Well,
you're supposed to marry for life, but you're also supposed to be prudent, right? So, you could say, is it prudent to not plan for the possibility that a marriage could end?
Well, there's the rub.
I'm not an expert on anything, but there's prudence, and then there's, you're married for life. How do do those contradict? It seems like it.
Why would they? Whoa, hang tight here, because prudence doesn't mean that guaranteed. Prudence means you will.
Well, no, but if the marriage were to end, and you haven't planned for it, then that could be catastrophe for the children as well, right?
Always, but guess what? 90% of the decisions are being made by the female, and often it has to do with a lack of communication. I mean, people are not communicating enough to, and are not choosing, making choices where they've made their arguments about what it is that they want as a team. They just keep either
I'm just saying, it seems like
taking
that
it.
would be, if you were to sort of
That's the
be
non-prudent.
generous at what people are thinking, that would be something that would actually be a good argument, or a decent argument, or a legitimate argument, as opposed to the men and women are equal, they're not complementary, they're equal, they're the same. That's just doesn't seem
Well,
to work
that's
at
not
all.
true. So the reality is that sometimes decisions are constantly being made that make sure that you're what's good for the whole family. If you're making a decision for the good of the whole family, you're not doing it for equality purposes. You're doing it because this is more important than that. So I think that a lot of people are trying to make decisions according to themselves.
No, absolutely.
Period.
No, they're making decisions based on
So so then
children are a luxury that you choose to do or not, like in every other luxury.
well,
But here's another thing. Here's
that's an
another thing.
attitude issue. That's a wrong thinking.
Here's another thing. So another big issue that I have is that we literally call mothers by a different word or a different phrase. We call them this today. We call them stay-at-home moms, right?
Oh yeah.
So they're saying, there's all these problems with the perception of are you
I've always found it to be a very
are you a mom? Are you
weird
do you work?
phrase.
Or are you a mom? And whether that that makes you like a girl boss if you're working and you're so. But just if you just think about the term stay-at-home mom, you've already got something that kind of it's a little odd.
Yes.
It doesn't really get to what a person is, right? I mean, is that what defines you? Is that you stay at home?
No.
It's very odd. We get all upset. It's like this idea that 1950s mentality.
Yeah.
Well, stay-at-home mom sounds like something weird, like out of the 1950s or something. Like you get caught outside and you're like, hey, what are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to stay in your home?
Oh, there's a dog. Come on, get back.
It's really weird. I find it really weird.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, if instead of referring to stay-at-home mom, we said full-time mom or part-time mom.
Well, that's the facts.
Right.
That's actually what's happening.
Well, it seems accurate description.
No, it's clear.
Full-time mom or part-time mom.
Absolutely.
Right. So if we were to use that terminology, right?
Well, somebody would get a little upset, I would think.
I think, probably a lot of people would get upset. But isn't that weird that we live in a world where you can't describe things just like we used to say mother, right? And that was the proper term. Stay-at-home mom is just odd. It doesn't refer to anything
that's actually
defining
happening
about a person. The correct term equal to mother would be, or an accurate term would be like full-time mom or part-time mom. But you can't. We'd have to have like a national, like we'd all have to get together and decide, is that okay? Is that appropriate? Who would be upset if we did that? So we don't just call things by what they are anymore. But anyways, so that's probably for a whole nother show.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But I just wanted to show this article. But it's an interesting article. I'll link it below, and we'll end with that.
Great.